Emily was just a little girl, small and quiet, with eyes that always looked as if they carried a secret sadness. She lived in a neighborhood filled with children her age, but somehow she always seemed apart from them. When other children shouted and laughed while chasing each other in the street, Emily stood at a distance, clutching the straps of her small backpack and watching with a faint smile that never lasted long. Deep down, she wished someone would turn to her, wave her over, and say, "Come play with us." But that moment never came. Her parents were good people, hard-working and responsible, but they were always busy. Her father worked long hours and her mother balanced housework with part-time jobs. By the time evening came, both were too tired to notice the little details in their daughter's life. When Emily sat silently at the dinner table, pushing her food around without eating much, they assumed she was just being a picky child. When she quietly slipped off to her room right after dinner, they thought she just wanted to play alone. They didn't see the loneliness that was building inside her heart. At school, Emily's days weren't much better. She was a smart child, but too shy to raise her hand in class. When the teacher asked questions, Emily knew the answers but kept her lips tightly shut. Other children, the louder ones, shouted out answers and laughed with one another. Emily sat quietly at her desk, scribbling in her notebook and wishing she could be as brave as the others. During recess, the playground filled with noise. Children swung from the monkey bars, raced each other across the grass, and played games in circles. Emily usually walked to the swing set, choosing the one at the far end where no one else sat. She would swing gently, listening to the creak of the chains while her eyes followed the groups of children nearby. She watched them share secrets, laugh at jokes, and run together as if they belonged to a special world that she couldn't enter. Sometimes, she tried to smile at them when they passed by, but they were too caught up in their games to notice. Other times she thought about joining in but always stopped herself. She feared they would push her away or laugh at her for trying, so she stayed on her swing, swaying back and forth, pretending she was happy, though inside her heart felt heavier each day. When school ended, Emily often walked home alone. She carried her books pressed against her chest, staring at the ground as her shoes tapped against the sidewalk. The street was full of cars rushing past, people talking loudly into their phones, and children skipping with their parents. But to Emily, the world always seemed quieter, as if she moved through it unseen. At home, she opened the front door and called out softly, but no one answered right away. Her father was still at work, and her mother was often in the kitchen, busy with pots, pans, and grocery bags. Emily would go upstairs to her room, place her school bag on the chair, and sit on her bed. The walls around her were decorated with drawings she had made, little flowers, houses, and suns with smiling faces. They were bright and colorful, but they didn't make the silence any easier. She sometimes sat by the window looking outside at the children riding their bicycles on the street. They shouted to each other, raced down the block, and sometimes even rang their bells as they passed her house. Emily pressed her forehead to the cool glass and whispered to herself, "I wish I could ride with them." But she never opened the door. She never stepped outside to ask. Nighttime was the loneliest for her. After dinner, when the dishes were washed and her parents turned on the television, Emily would curl up under her blanket. She wasn't sleepy yet, but she didn't want to sit downstairs listening to conversations that didn't include her. In the quiet of her room, she hugged her stuffed bear tightly, as if it could fill the space that real friends and attention should have filled. Sometimes she whispered to it, "Do you think anyone cares about me?" Her bear, of course, said nothing, and Emily's eyes would grow damp until she drifted off into sleep. There were days when she tried to tell herself that it didn't matter. She would remind herself that she had food to eat, clothes to wear, and a roof over her head. Many children didn't even have that, she thought. But no matter how hard she tried to convince herself, the ache of being unseen didn't go away. It wasn't about things. It was about being noticed, being cared for, being loved in a way she could feel. At school, she longed for a friend to sit beside her at lunch. She longed for someone to share a secret with, or to whisper her name in excitement, asking her to come and play. But her seat was usually empty. She nibbled at her sandwich quietly, pretending not to hear the laughter echoing around her. When teachers handed out group assignments, Emily dreaded it. The other children quickly formed pairs or trios, leaving her standing awkwardly at the edge until a teacher placed her with someone. Her group partners never paid her much attention. They spoke over her, and she ended up doing small tasks no one else wanted. She accepted it silently because she didn't want to cause trouble. But inside, she wished she could be part of the team instead of just an extra piece. Her sadness grew heavier with every passing day, and she began to believe that maybe this was how life would always be. She convinced herself that perhaps she wasn't interesting enough for anyone to notice. Maybe she didn't have the right kind of laugh or the right way of speaking. Maybe she was simply invisible, a shadow passing quietly through the world. But there was still a spark inside her, a quiet hope she couldn't let go of. Each night before she fell asleep, she whispered the same wish, that someone somewhere would finally see her. Not as the quiet girl in the corner, not as the child who never spoke up, but as a person worth knowing. Emily didn't know that this wish would soon be answered in the most unexpected way. It would not be a teacher or a classmate or even a neighbor who would notice her first. It would be a creature with 4 legs, gentle eyes, and a heart full of loyalty. A creature that would walk right into her life and change everything. But for now, Emily didn't know that her story was about to shift. For now, she was still the lonely little girl who believed no one cared. The days continued to pass and Emily's silence grew deeper. On the outside, she appeared calm. Just a quiet little girl who never caused trouble, but inside she was slowly sinking into a world of sadness that no one seemed to notice. Every morning when she woke up, she looked at herself in the mirror and whispered softly, "Maybe today someone will talk to me." But when she returned home at the end of the day, the hope in her eyes had faded again. Her parents cared for her in their own way, but they didn't truly see her pain. When she came downstairs in the mornings, dressed in her school uniform, her mother would quickly hand her a lunchbox before rushing to answer a phone call or finish a chore. Her father would often already be gone, leaving early for work before the sun even rose. Emily ate her breakfast quietly, her spoon tapping against the bowl as if trying to remind someone she was there. But no one asked her how she felt or what she dreamed about. She wanted so badly to tell her mother about the stories she imagined in her head or about the way she loved to draw flowers in the margins of her notebooks. But each time she tried, she saw the tiredness in her mother's eyes and swallowed her words back down. She wanted to tell her father that she wished they could walk together in the park, just the two of them. But when he came home late in the evening, exhausted and silent, she simply hugged him goodnight without saying anything at all. At school, Emily's quietness became almost invisible. Teachers did not mean to ignore her, but with classrooms full of energetic children, it was easy to overlook the one who never raised her hand. During group discussions, louder voices filled the room, and Emily's thoughts remained trapped inside her. She wanted to speak, but her lips refused to move. She wanted to share her answers, but fear held her back. She worried that if she spoke, the others might laugh or roll their eyes. So she chose silence again and again. The other children rarely included her. They were not cruel. They were simply unaware. They raced each other on the playground, swapped snacks at lunchtime, and talked about the shows they watched at home. Emily listened carefully, longing to be part of their laughter, but no one turned toward her. Sometimes she tried to walk near them, hoping someone would notice her presence, but when they didn't, she quietly stepped back again. Her loneliness began to show in small ways. She doodled in her notebooks instead of paying attention in class. She stared out the window more often, watching the leaves dance in the wind instead of listening to the lesson. At lunch, she ate slowly, chewing carefully as if stretching out the time so she wouldn't finish too quickly and have nothing left to do. She never dared to sit at a crowded table. Instead, she chose an empty corner and told herself it was fine. But inside, she longed for the sound of someone calling her name. At home, her evenings followed the same quiet rhythm. She completed her homework alone at her small desk, erasing mistakes over and over until the paper grew thin. She didn't ask her parents for help, even when she struggled, because she felt they wouldn't have the time. After dinner, she watched them talk about bills, schedules, and responsibilities, but rarely about her. She sometimes wondered if they truly knew who she was, what made her happy, or what made her sad. Emily found comfort only in small routines she created for herself. She liked to sit by her bedroom window at dusk when the sky turned shades of orange and pink. She would watch families walk by, holding hands or laughing together. She would see children her age riding bikes or playing with their dogs. She always pressed her face against the glass, wishing she could be part of those moments. But when the sun dipped lower and darkness filled the street, she would close her curtains and return to her empty room. She often spoke to herself in whispers. When no one else listened, she became her own companion. She asked herself questions, told herself little stories, and sometimes even pretended she had a friend sitting beside her. In those moments, she smiled faintly, imagining conversations that never really happened. But once the imagination faded, the silence returned heavier than before. The sadness also crept into her dreams. At night, she dreamed of standing in a crowded place shouting for someone to notice her, but her voice made no sound. People walked past as if she didn't exist. She woke up from those dreams with tears on her cheeks, clutching her blanket tightly. She wanted to run into her parents' room and tell them about the nightmares, but she stopped herself. She didn't want to disturb them. Instead, she wiped her tears quietly and tried to fall back asleep. Her parents, though loving, never realized how much Emily was hurting. They saw her as a good, quiet child who never caused problems. They thought she enjoyed being alone because she never complained. They never guessed that behind her silence was a deep ache, a longing to be seen, heard, and loved in a way she could truly feel. Even small moments at school added to her feelings of being forgotten. When birthdays were celebrated, children received cards and cheers from their classmates. When Emily's birthday came, only a few children muttered "Happy Birthday" as they walked past her desk. She smiled politely, but inside she wished for balloons, laughter, and friends who truly cared. That night, when she blew out the single candle on her small cake at home, she closed her eyes tightly and wished for one thing only. "Please, let me find someone who cares about me." Emily tried to stay strong, but sometimes her sadness showed in her eyes. Teachers occasionally noticed her quietness but assumed she was just shy. Neighbors saw her walking alone but thought she preferred solitude. Even her parents thought she was simply an independent child. No one realized the weight she carried in her small heart. She was too young to explain her feelings clearly, so she carried them silently. Every day she hoped for change. She hoped for a friend, for kindness, for a sign that she mattered. And though she didn't know it yet, her silent prayers were slowly being answered. Life was preparing to surprise her in a way she could never have imagined. For now, Emily remained in her small world of quiet sadness, whispering to her stuffed bear at night and waiting for a miracle she wasn't sure would ever come. But just beyond her understanding, something extraordinary was already moving closer to her life. It had 4 paws, a wagging tail, and a heart that could sense what words could not. And very soon, this lonely little girl's world would change forever. One quiet afternoon, Emily sat on her usual bench in the park. It was a place she often visited after school, a place where she could sit alone without feeling like she was in anyone's way. The air was cool and the trees swayed gently with the breeze. Children ran past her, laughing and chasing each other with carefree joy. Emily kept her head down, tracing little circles on the bench with her finger, pretending she didn't hear the laughter that reminded her of everything she was missing. Her small feet dangled just above the ground, swinging slowly back and forth. She wished she had a reason to join the games around her, but no one ever asked. So she sat in silence, hugging her backpack against her chest like a shield. A sigh escaped her lips as she whispered softly, "I wish someone would sit with me." And then something unexpected happened. From the corner of her eye, Emily noticed movement, a large shape coming closer. She turned her head quickly and froze. A big German shepherd was walking straight toward her. His coat shone in the afternoon light, and his strong paws made soft thuds on the path. His ears were pointed, his eyes alert, and his tail swayed calmly behind him. Emily's heart raced. She had never been this close to such a big dog before. Her first thought was fear. She gripped her backpack tighter and held her breath. What if the dog barked at her? What if it bit her? She stayed completely still, hoping he would pass by. But the dog didn't walk past her. Instead, he slowed his steps and came right to where she sat. Without hesitation, he gently lowered his head and placed it on her lap. Emily's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The weight of his head was warm and steady, and his deep brown eyes looked up at her with a softness that made her chest tighten. For the first time in a long time, someone, though not a person, had chosen to come to her. Her hands trembled as she slowly reached out, unsure if she was allowed to touch him. Her fingers brushed against his fur, and she gasped at how soft it felt. The dog didn't move away. Instead, he closed his eyes as if to say, "It's okay. I trust you." Emily's heart filled with an emotion she had almost forgotten. Comfort. Tears she had been holding back for weeks welled up and slipped down her cheeks. She whispered softly, "Why are you here? Why did you come to me?" Of course, the dog didn't answer with words, but the gentle way he leaned into her touch felt like an answer of its own. A moment later, a man appeared, walking briskly down the path. He looked to be in his 40s with kind eyes and a warm smile. He was holding a leash which dangled loosely in his hand. When he saw where his dog had gone, he stopped in surprise. "That's strange," the man said, walking closer. "Max usually doesn't go near strangers." Emily quickly wiped her tears with the back of her hand, embarrassed that someone had seen her crying. She looked down at the dog, who was still resting calmly against her as if he belonged there. The man chuckled softly. "Well, I guess he's made a new friend." He crouched down beside them. "Hello there, sweetheart. I hope Max isn't bothering you." Emily shook her head quickly. "No, he's not bothering me," she whispered. Her voice was small, but the man caught every word. "I'm glad," he said kindly. "He must really like you. He's usually very shy around new people. But look at him, he won't leave your side." Emily glanced at the dog, and for the first time in a long time she smiled. It wasn't forced or polite. It was a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. She stroked Max's head gently, and his tail wagged happily against the bench. The man introduced himself as Mr. Lewis. He told Emily a little about Max, how he was a loyal dog, how he loved going for walks in the park, and how he usually kept close to his owner. "But today," Mr. Lewis said with a laugh, "it seems he had his own plans." Emily listened carefully, nodding now and then. She didn't say much, but Mr. Lewis noticed how her hands never left Max's fur, as though she was afraid he might disappear if she let go. He sensed something in her quietness, something that reminded him of loneliness. "Do you come here often?" Mr. Lewis asked gently. Emily nodded. "Sometimes," she whispered. "Well," he said warmly, "I think Max is going to start looking for you whenever we come here. You've made quite an impression on him." Emily's heart fluttered. No one had ever told her she mattered enough to be remembered. Not by people, not by anyone. And now, here was this big dog, choosing her in a way she couldn't explain. After a while, Mr. Lewis stood up. "We should keep moving, but I'm sure Max doesn't want to leave you just yet." He gave a playful tug on the leash, but Max stayed firmly where he was, pressing closer to Emily. Both Mr. Lewis and Emily laughed softly, sharing a small moment of understanding. Eventually, Max stood up and stretched, then gave Emily's hand a gentle nudge with his nose, as if saying goodbye for now. Emily patted his head and whispered, "Thank you." As Mr. Lewis and Max walked away, Emily sat on the bench, her heart still warm from the unexpected encounter. She touched the spot on her lap where Max's head had rested, almost as if she could still feel the weight of his comfort. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't feel completely invisible. The next day, Emily returned to the park, her eyes searching the paths and the benches. She hoped with all her heart that she would see the German Shepherd again, and sure enough, in the distance she spotted him, strong and graceful, walking beside Mr. Lewis. Her face lit up. Max's ears perked up too, and as soon as he saw her, he pulled at the leash, eager to run toward her. Mr. Lewis laughed, letting him go. Max bounded straight to Emily and rested his head on her lap again, just like before. In that moment, Emily realized something she had been waiting to feel her whole life. She mattered. To this dog, she was not invisible. She was someone worth noticing, someone worth loving. And as her small hand stroked Max's fur, she felt the first spark of hope she had been wishing for all along. After that first surprising encounter in the park, Emily's life began to change slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, but in ways that would shape her heart and mind. She started visiting the park more often, each time hoping to see Max and Mr. Lewis. And each time she did, her small world seemed brighter, as if the sun shone a little warmer just for her. Max, the German Shepherd, was always the first to notice her. As soon as he spotted Emily walking toward the bench, his tail wagged so fast it seemed to be a blur. He ran with joyful energy, his paws lightly thumping against the path, and pressed his head gently into Emily's lap. Emily would laugh softly, a sound that had been rare in her life, and run her fingers through his thick, shiny fur. That simple interaction, the touch, the warmth, the trust, was enough to fill the emptiness that had been sitting in her chest for years. Over time, Emily and Max developed a bond that felt almost magical. She would tell him things she couldn't tell anyone else, She would whisper secrets, share her thoughts, and even describe her dreams. Max listened silently, tilting his head as if understanding every word. Sometimes, when Emily felt the sadness creep back in, she would bury her face in his fur and just sit quietly, letting him comfort her in ways no human had. Mr. Lewis noticed the change in Emily, too. He saw how she began to smile more openly, and how her posture straightened slightly as if carrying a newfound confidence. He also noticed her hesitation at first, the way she would look at the other children in the park but not approach them. So one afternoon he gently encouraged her. "Emily," he said softly, "Max really likes being around you. Do you want to play a little while he runs?" Emily hesitated. She had always feared joining other children, fearing rejection or laughter. But looking at Max, seeing the trust and encouragement in his eyes, she nodded shyly. Mr. Lewis laughed and gave Max a playful pat on the back. "Go ahead, Max, show her how fun it can be." With Max by her side, Emily slowly approached a group of children playing near the swings. Max didn't rush ahead or push her forward. Instead, he stayed close, offering silent courage. The children looked at her curiously at first, and Emily felt a flutter of nervousness in her chest. But when Max wagged his tail and bounded happily, some of the children smiled and patted him. One little boy even asked if they could throw a ball for Max, and Emily's eyes widened in surprise. She had never felt so included in her life. Over the next few weeks, this routine became a small but steady change in Emily's world. Max was always there to give her courage, to bridge the gap between her loneliness and the friendship she had been longing for. She began to speak more, first to Max, then to Mr. Lewis, and eventually to the other children. Each word she spoke, each small smile she shared added a little more confidence to her heart. Even at home, Emily began to open up in ways she never had before. She told her parents about Max, about the games in the park, and about the way the dog seemed to understand her feelings. Her mother listened carefully, finally noticing the sparkle in Emily's eyes that had been missing for so long. Her father, too, began to ask her about her days, showing genuine interest in the little things she had never shared before. Slowly, the walls of distance between Emily and her parents started to crumble. Emily also discovered new routines that helped her feel more confident. She would draw pictures of Max, of herself, and of the park where they met. She would write short stories about their adventures, letting her imagination grow while knowing that her real-life friend was always there for her. These activities gave her a sense of purpose, and for the first time she felt proud of something she had created. Max's presence also gave Emily a sense of safety. Before, the world had sometimes felt like a place where she could be overlooked or ignored. But with Max by her side, she felt noticed and valued. She walked taller, spoke more freely, and even laughed louder. People in the park began to notice her too, not just the children but adults passing by. They saw a little girl who was learning to step out of her shell, guided by the loyalty and love of a dog who had chosen her. One afternoon, Emily's teacher happened to be passing by the park on her way home. She noticed Emily sitting on the bench, Max resting his head on her lap. There was a light in Emily's eyes that the teacher had never seen before. Curious, she stopped and smiled at Emily. "Hello there," she said warmly. Emily looked up a bit shyly and smiled back. The teacher knelt beside her and said, "I see you have a wonderful friend here. Max is lucky to have you too." Those words, though simple, filled Emily with a warmth she hadn't felt before. For so long she had believed that adults, children, and the world didn't notice her. But now, with Max, Mr. Lewis, and even her teacher recognizing her, Emily started to understand that she had a place in the world, that she mattered. The bond between Emily and Max became a daily ritual. They met in the park almost every day after school. Emily would bring small treats for Max, and in return, he offered her companionship, joy, and comfort. She began to look forward to these moments more than anything else. The anticipation of seeing him brought a spark of excitement to her day, replacing the dull, heavy feeling of loneliness that had followed her for so long. Even her confidence in school started to grow. She raised her hand more often, answered questions, and began to interact with classmates. She found that when she returned home and shared her small victories with her parents, they listened attentively, praising her efforts. Slowly, Emily realized that the world wasn't as lonely as she had once believed. People could be kind, understanding, and encouraging, but sometimes it took a loyal friend to show you that first. Emily also began to help others quietly in her own small ways. She shared Max's attention with other children who seemed lonely, showing them that kindness and friendship could come in unexpected forms. She learned that small gestures, like offering a smile or saying a kind word, could make someone else feel seen, just as Max had made her feel. Her parents noticed the change in her demeanor as well. The quiet little girl who had once sat alone on the swing, lost in her own thoughts, now laughed more openly. She shared stories about the park, Max, and the children she had started to play with. The bond with her parents grew stronger, as they realized how important it was to nurture her emotional well-being. They started spending more time together, reading stories, going for walks, and sharing small moments that strengthened their connection. Through all of this, Max remained Emily's constant companion, her anchor in a world that had once felt so cold and distant. He was not just a dog. He was a friend, a confidant, and a teacher in the language of love and loyalty. He taught Emily that even when life seemed lonely, connection could be found in the most unexpected places. Emily's world was no longer empty. The sadness that had once filled her heart began to fade, replaced by hope, trust, and joy. She had learned that even in moments of deep loneliness, one act of kindness, one loyal friend could change everything. Max had done that for her, and in return, Emily opened herself up to life in ways she had never imagined. As she walked home from the park each day, she held her head high, her eyes sparkling with newfound confidence. She knew that there would still be challenges ahead, but she also knew she was no longer alone. Max had shown her that love could come in unexpected forms, and Emily was ready to embrace it with her whole heart. Emily's life continued to change in ways she had never imagined. What had once been quiet afternoons filled with loneliness were now lively moments of joy, laughter, and companionship. Max, the loyal German shepherd who had first approached her on that park bench, had become a permanent part of her life. Each day, Emily looked forward to seeing him, running her fingers through his thick fur, and sharing little secrets she had never told anyone before. The changes were not only in her heart but also in her daily routine. She woke up each morning with excitement, thinking of the adventures she and Max might have in the park. She would hurry through breakfast, put on her shoes, and grab her small backpack, eager to see her faithful friend. Max would be waiting, his tail wagging as if he had been counting the minutes until she arrived. When they met, Emily felt a joy she had never known before, pure, simple, and comforting. Even her parents noticed the transformation. The little girl who had once been quiet and withdrawn now shared stories about the park, about Max's playful antics, and about the children she had started to talk to. Her mother listened with rapt attention, smiling as Emily described the games they played, the tricks Max learned, and the way he comforted her when she felt sad. Her father, too, became more involved, asking questions about her day and joining them occasionally for walks in the park. Emily realized that the bond she had formed with Max had not only brought happiness to her own life, but had also connected her family in a new way. School life became easier, too. Emily began to interact more with her classmates, slowly breaking the wall of shyness that had kept her isolated for so long. She raised her hand in class, answered questions confidently, and even invited some children to join her in games at the park. Max often accompanied her during these visits, and his presence gave her courage. Other children were naturally drawn to him, and in turn, they started including Emily in their activities. She learned that friendship could be built one small step at a time, guided by kindness and trust. Emily also found herself helping others quietly, in ways she had never done before. She noticed children who sat alone, and she would approach them gently, sharing Max's attention, offering a smile, or saying a kind word. She understood now how powerful small acts of kindness could be. Max had taught her that even the smallest gesture could make someone feel noticed, valued, and loved. Emily's empathy grew, and with it she became a source of comfort to others, just as Max had been to her. Her parents continued to support her transformation. They set aside time to spend together, whether reading stories, going on walks, or simply talking about their day. They learned to listen carefully to Emily, recognizing the importance of her feelings and experiences. The bond within the family strengthened, and Emily felt a deep sense of security and belonging that she had never felt before. The love she received at home, combined with the loyalty of Max, created a solid foundation for her confidence and happiness. Emily's favorite moments, however, remained those she spent with Max in the park. They explored the trails, ran across the grassy fields, and played simple games of fetch. Max would nudge her with his nose, encouraging her to laugh, run, or simply enjoy the moment. Emily's laughter echoed through the park, a sound that had once been rare and precious. Children stopped to watch, parents smiled, and Emily realized that she was no longer invisible. She had found her place in the world, and it felt wonderful. One particular afternoon, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, Emily sat on the grass with Max lying beside her. She leaned against him, feeling the steady warmth of his body. "I'm so glad I met you, Max," she whispered softly. "You changed my life." Max rested his head gently on her shoulder as if he understood every word. At that moment, Emily felt a deep connection, not just to Max, but to the world around her. She realized that love, trust, and kindness could come in many forms, sometimes even from unexpected places. Emily's confidence continued to grow. At school, she became more involved in activities, raising her hand, sharing ideas, and even helping other children with their work. Her teachers noticed the change and praised her for her courage and determination. Emily learned that stepping out of her comfort zone, even in small ways, could lead to positive experiences. She also learned the importance of perseverance and patience, understanding that meaningful connections sometimes take time to develop. Max remained her constant companion, guiding her through these changes with his gentle presence. He was always there when Emily felt unsure, offering comfort and encouragement without words. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, built on trust, love, and shared experiences. Emily realized that Max was not just a pet. He was a teacher, showing her the true meaning of loyalty, friendship, and unconditional love. Emily's relationships with other children also improved. She learned to trust them, to share her thoughts and feelings, and to participate in group activities. With Max by her side, she felt confident to approach others and form connections that had once seemed impossible. Her social skills developed naturally, and she discovered the joy of genuine friendship. Her parents were amazed at the transformation. They saw the little girl who had once sat quietly in her room, dreaming of companionship, now confidently engaging with the world. They realized the importance of listening, understanding, and being present in their child's life. Emily's journey showed them that even small acts of attention and care could make a significant difference in a child's emotional well-being. As the months passed, Emily's life became filled with happiness and purpose. The sadness that had once dominated her days faded, replaced by hope, joy, and love. She had discovered that she mattered, that her feelings were important, and that she could form meaningful connections with others. Max had been the key to this transformation, offering loyalty, comfort, and courage when she needed it most. Emily never forgot the first day Max had approached her in the park, resting his head on her lap and offering a sense of warmth she had never known. That single act of kindness had changed her life forever, showing her that even in moments of deep loneliness, hope could be found. She carried this lesson with her always, sharing it with others through her kindness, empathy, and the love she gave to those around her. In the evenings, Emily would often sit by her window, looking out at the park where she had first met Max. She smiled as she remembered the day he had chosen her, understanding that sometimes life had a way of answering prayers in unexpected ways. She knew that she had grown stronger, braver, and more compassionate because of the bond she had formed with a loyal dog who had walked into her life and refused to leave. Emily's story became one of hope and transformation. From a lonely little girl who believed no one cared, she became a confident, joyful, and loving child who understood the power of friendship, trust, and kindness. Max had shown her that the smallest gestures could have the greatest impact, and Emily carried that lesson with her every day. Even as she grew older, Emily never forgot Max and the way he had changed her life. She continued to visit the park, sharing her laughter, stories, and kindness with others. Max remained her loyal companion, a reminder that love and friendship could be found in the most unexpected places. Through their bond, Emily learned that even in moments of darkness, hope and happiness could always be discovered with patience, courage, and an open heart. And so, the once lonely little girl who had felt invisible and forgotten became a bright, joyful presence in the world. She had learned to trust, to love, and to embrace life with an open heart. All because a German shepherd had walked up to her one quiet afternoon and done the unthinkable, shown her that she mattered, and in doing so, had given her life back its color, warmth, and light.